Okay, we are ready. It's 9:05.
Okay, thanks everyone. It's 9:05, so let's call the Weston Board of Education Policy Committee meeting to order. I think the first agenda item is the approval of the minutes. I've gone over them and I don't have any changes that need to be made.
Same.
Sharon, can I have a motion?
Yeah, I move we approve the Board of Ed minutes from December 5th. Was that when it was from?
I think so.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'll second that motion. And then I'm in favor. Aye. Sharon, you're in favor.
Aye. Yep.
Okay, so that motion passes. Then we can move ahead to the substantive agenda. I'm assuming this is the order. I know we have Mark here, so I want to be conscious of his time. So the first item is I think the fundraising, right? Let's see, approval, discussion of 1325 advertising and promotion, and then followed by 5147 1324 fundraising activities. They kind of go hand in hand, and just as some context, I asked for this to be put on the agenda because I'd received some outreach from from a community organization that was interested in how to go about sponsorship and fundraising activities. So I wanted to we pulled the policies, and then I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page so we could give this organization the right direction, because the policies kind of, if you've read through them, they give some guidance in terms of getting superintendent approval and that sort of thing. But there wasn't really any detail in terms of size or shape or duration, and I didn't know if we had informal practices that we could use to help guide this organization, or if there's anything we wanted to discuss. And so I welcome the committee and our guest Mark Berkowitz's thoughts on that, and then we can give some feedback. Lisa, did you have something?
No, I just want to clarify something, and I want to make sure that I'm correct in saying this. The advertising and promotion policy, last time it was adopted in 2012. There is no corresponding policy in the Shipman Bank. Is that correct, Jody? Correct. The fundraising is different. It's about kids raising funds, amounts, things like that. But that should be noted that we really have no other kind of policy to go off of, which is fine. I just want to, there isn't one.
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you just talk a little bit about, especially, we look at, if everyone just wants to take a minute and then go to the outdoor advertising. But why don't we just get a minute to skim through the first few paragraphs and then talk about, make sure, is this the practice that we do? And if there's any,
Yeah, so the process has evolved over the years, thankfully. When I started as the AD, we were not allowed any outdoor banners, any outdoor advertising at all. And the Board of Ed has softened on that stance. And basically, we're not allowed any permanent outdoor advertising. It started on the stadium field, and it really started with the Gridiron Club, being able to selling banners, advertising for football games, which they have done ever since they were given permission. The maximum number, I believe, is 20. They're all supposed to be approximately the same size and dimension, and as far as the banners go. And obviously, all banners are approved by the school, which usually means me. We're not, selling tobacco products and alcohol and things like that at our football games, in the banners. That then evolved to the lower turf field, and the Booster Club being afforded the opportunity to sell, our overall Booster Club being afforded the opportunity to sell banners there, which they had done before COVID. I don't believe they've done since COVID. And they were maybe 3, 4. I think 4 was the maximum that they actually sold on that lower field. But the Gridiron has.
Field, I'm sorry. Are we talking about a soccer field, you mean? The lower one?
Yeah, lower turf, yep.
Okay, thank you.
soccer, lacrosse, field hockey. So I call it the lower turf so that
Okay.
nobody gets offended. And so then that did expand, which isn't noted. I know when I was reading this yesterday in the policy,
All right.
the Board of Ed did agree to allow baseball and softball
Mhm.
to sell. I believe it was up to 10 banners for both of those facilities, which baseball has taken advantage of, and softball, I believe, did for a year, but I don't think it's continued since then. And there were some stipulations discussed about where the banner should be and shouldn't be, but it was never put into writing. It was kind of do it as a trial, and unless, we'll see how it goes. And that's kind of what it's been for the last few years for them. So
Question.
Yep.
Is the cost the same? So if you want a banner and you're buying it through the boosters, is it a different price than if you're buying it through Western Baseball?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's similarly priced, but I don't think it's exactly the same. And it different fields, different views, different types. And the other piece is on the lower turf and on the stadium field, we also have a Pixel-Lock camera. So some of those banner buyers pay a little extra to have a little logo put on the live streams of those games. So that has also been occurring.
Can I ask a question? So you've been mentioning most of this is going through the boosters. If the question that I've heard from the community is from a specific sports team or sports organization, not necessarily the boosters broadly, do the boosters do they like own the rights to this process and everything should go through the boosters so that it's equitably distributed among all the sports? Or can any team that uses these fields want to, do this as a fundraiser, or should they coordinate through the boosters or coordinate through the athletic department? I don't know.
Well, I was the same group, I assume, that reached out to you, reached out to me, the youth group. And I told them exactly that. I said, well, I would have to check with the boosters to make sure they're not selling ads for that location during this spring season. But it also would need to be cleared through the Board of Education, because the board gave both the Booster Club and the Gridiron Club and then the Diamond Club, the board gave them the rights to sell those banners as long as they weren't permanent and they met, certain parameters. But I didn't know if that could be passed on. I didn't have the right to just pass that on to a youth group, which is probably why they went to you to begin with. So yes, the easy answer is, I believe Boosters does have the rights from the Board of Ed to.
Not written anywhere though. Right?
No,
It's not in writing. No, it's certainly not in writing anywhere. It was just kind of, at first, you weren't allowed to do it at all. And then Board of Ed said, okay, Boosters, you can do this for this space, and Gridiron Club, you can do this for this space. What I did tell that youth group is that the Booster Club, the overall Booster Club, doesn't really utilize the lower turf field in the fall. But this group was looking for the spring, which is a time when we do play varsity games on that lower turf field, and boosters might. I don't believe they are for this spring, but I also didn't want to get into a fight where
I think
you can do it this spring, but you can't do it next spring. So
it sounds like it could explode.
Yeah,
could.
I think that's what we
some
want to be
guardrails
careful, because we could be overselling space and then have
Correct.
this be like it'll be unsightly.
So it sounds to me as if this clearly has to be something that's put in writing, because there's got to be a black and white, right? So that otherwise there's especially if we have the same ad space potentially being sold by multiple groups and organizations. So, my suggestion with that would be maybe X number of the spots are available to the boosters, since the boosters support all sports. And then the other spots are available to, for example, the Diamond Club or the Gridiron Club and things like that, that they can sell. And the two of them can work together. If the Gridiron doesn't sell as many and the booster has more, they can, vice versa.
Well, that part hasn't been a problem because Gridiron Club has utilized the stadium field. The boosters don't sell for the stadium field. The boosters have only been selling for the lower turf field, and Diamond Club only sells for the baseball field.
And there's not been any there's not been any overlap.
There has been no, they've worked very well together.
Okay.
The where it's getting muddied now is there is a youth group that would like to get involved as well. And that's where we're, bringing in an entity that we've never had before.
So
They're
this
getting
is
involved in as far as they want to sell banners there?
They would love to sell banners and put them up in that space. Correct.
I still have some clarifying questions, please. So when we talk about Gridiron, that's 912.
Yes. Yes.
When we talk about boosters, that's 912.
Correct.
When we talk about Weston Baseball or Diamond Club, that's 912.
Correct.
What is 912? Sorry.
Grade 9 through 12. It's high
Okay.
school.
Okay.
All of these are that. Now, all of those groups are only for 912. So now you have certain youth programs, right?
Well, I think that the main difference, if you want to really put them in different boxes, boosters, Diamond Club, and Gridiron Club directly support our school, whereas the youth program is obviously is a youth program. It does not directly support. It supports itself, not the schools.
But we give them the right, and people write the checks to these organizations, and the checks or the money is collected by the organization, which is a separate entity like a PTO, and they keep track of the money. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What is about Weston Lacrosse? Is there a Diamond Club equivalent of the Weston Lacrosse for the high school?
Well, the Weston Youth Lacrosse does give money to our high school program, does help fundraise for our high school program. So they do raise money for themselves, but they also do support our high school program.
Because it becomes kind of a slippery slope then. Same thing with Weston Soccer.
Weston Soccer doesn't do as much for the high school program, but they are a youth program in town and they do support each other. So it isn't a direct boosters of a high school program, but it is, obviously we all work together.
Okay, and we're not sure about the amount that it's spent. So right now, the only thing that's codified in this policy is varsity field, lower field. Well, not even.
No, it's just varsity field in the football stadium. That's
Varsity field is the lower turf. The varsity field is the lower turf.
And the lighted varsity field. Okay, so those two, and there are some numbers. And then it says about temporary occasional outdoor advertising beyond, but there's no real dates of like it goes up for the season or anything like that. That's not in the policy, correct? And then
That's always been the understanding, but correct. I didn't see it written anywhere.
Think about what we had. And then it talks about district media may not be utilized for advertising by private interests and other organizations. On the next page, so that pixel thing, whatever it is, the pixel lock camera, where these people are buying little ads, is that district media? Whose media is that?
Well, that's the NFHS network. So I mean, obviously I oversee that and schedule it, and it live streams all of our competitions on those facilities.
And do we pay with our operational budget, the cost to be part of that?
No, we don't pay anything.
I'm just trying to make sure that whatever we do, we make sure we do it in every,
Yeah.
like, look at the
The booster club, I mean, the Board of Ed did have some initial outlay when we put the cameras in years ago. It was mostly funded by the booster clubs, but Board of Ed did have some. And since that, it doesn't cost us anything to live stream the games. It's actually, it costs the consumer, if they want to subscribe, to be a member of watching those, watching the games. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the NFHS network, and the fact that we have it on 3 of our game facilities has been huge.
But
And-
if we say it's a digital medium operated by the district because you kind of manage it, then it sounds like it falls under this. I'm not saying we can't do it. It just, is that correct, Dan DeVito?
So I don't know. I don't think it does. I don't know. I mean,
If Mark operates it and makes sure it's running and all that, can you say that it's operated by him and he's the district?
It's a national broadcasting system that I just put in a schedule so that
we don't operate it, Lisa. It's like Mark said, it's completely operated. It's completely independent. Mark at the beginning of each season or the beginning of the year simply gives them the schedule. They legitimately do everything else.
Yeah, but I think we're splitting hairs here. Hey, I don't have a problem. I mean, it depends on what Melissa and Steve say. I just want to make sure if we're tweaking the policy, we do what we want it to do.
right, we might have to adjust the verbiage in the policy
Right.
if we want to allow that. That's all.
All right.
Yeah, I guess,
The advertising that's being sold on that network in particular, who's the beneficiary of that?
Again, it's the Gridiron Club or the Booster Club, because
So-
those are the sites where they're the controlling entity for the banners, and it's really just being sold as an upgrade to a banner, right?
Yeah,
You buy
yeah.
a banner at X dollars, and if you want also NFHS network, you pay a couple of dollars more, and you get that.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm
Okay.
just
I
trying to think about inventory. What sort of ad inventory is available, both digital and also,
Yeah,
outdoor?
the digital, it's not much. I mean, there are 4 corners in a screen, and one of those corners right now is our Trojan head, and another corner is the NFHS network sign. We've really been using the other 2 corners at times, sometimes 3 at most. That's the most we've ever used, is 3 of the corners with just a little picture of the logo of the company.
Okay. All right.
So right now, if we're talking about outdoor advertising, just a basic thing I think that might have to be done is that we have to include the baseball and softball fields in this verbiage, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to include them. Do we want to no more than a total of 20 banners in place anytime on each field? Do we want to be that specific?
I think we have to be, I think we have to have an outer number. Otherwise, it could be a banner all over the place and it would be
Well, I think it
Unattractive.
needs to be specified by each field then, quite
probably.
frankly, right?
Yeah, and it probably should be a little more specified as to what is and where is and isn't allowed, because I get questioned on that all the time, and I've been working off what I've been told by past board members is the preference, but it really isn't written.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been telling people. This is all we can do. You can do it here, but you can't do it here. And if that were written, I think it would make our lives more simple.
So can you kind of define that, like, these are the fields, this is the number of banners, and the location has to be approved by the superintendent or designee. The designee would be you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the size, I think we want to make the size uniform, right? For each banner.
Within,
Within each field.
Yes, within each field.
so let me just ask another question. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I want to understand. So has anybody other than those groups, this youth program, have they sold banners on the fields? Has it
Not
been
until, no one's even asked until this year.
until
I
this
think that's what brought all this up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is up until this year, it was Gridiron Club on the football field, on the stadium field. It was Boosters on the lower turf field. And then it was Diamond Club on the baseball field and the softball team on the softball at North House.
So Diamond Club doesn't deal with softball.
No, Diamond Club is a Boosters for our baseball group.
So my understanding is that everything has worked smoothly, and we do need to codify it. We need to put in writing the numbers and locations and all that stuff, which is definitely what the policy committee is here for. But I also understanding that this side youth organization has now reached out to us. What were they potentially looking to do? They were looking to sell advertising to benefit their organization during the spring sports season on my understanding on the varsity field. Then is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
And yeah, so I guess we have to, as a board, figure out whether or not outside organizations are eligible to do that. Is that correct? Or could they do some sort of, I mean, for example, like you said that the lacrosse organization, it's typically lacrosse that's using in the springtime. Who's using the varsity field the majority of the time in the springtime?
Only lacrosse.
Only lacrosse.
Well, there's youth soccer is also on it, but as far as a high school school program, lacrosse is the only varsity program or even JV program using that space.
Would it be the cleanest way to say, no, it's only supporting the 9 through 12 sports? Sorry, other groups, you're not selling banners.
Well, the reason
God, it starts looking like a ragtag, even though it's uniform. I don't know. I mean,
the reason why I bring that up, though, is because you also mentioned that the lacrosse organization doesn't typically get involved in selling banners. So my guess is that the banners that are up there are left over from the fall, correct?
Well, there are no banners there because they are taken down at the end of every season. That's been our understanding of the policy is they're not allowed to be permanent. So they come down at the end of every season.
I like that.
And
Yeah, I do too.
That's been our practice for as long as it's been allowed.
So maybe
The booster club, as far as I know at this moment, has not sold any banners for this spring season. I think, Lisa, a cleaner way might be to say if a youth organization is interested, depending upon where they're interested, they have to go through the booster organization that has control is the wrong word, but has control of that field. That way we don't end up with too many.
but that's only one field. You know what I mean? Like, will the boosters then take it over for any field? Or is it that they say if high school sports don't want it, then you can do it? But who's
Right. Well, if someone's trying to sell banners for the lower turf or the varsity field, then they would have to go through the booster club, the overall booster club. If they're trying to sell banners on the stadium field, they would have to go through the gridiron club. If they wanted to, if Babe Ruth wanted to sell banners at the baseball field, they would have to go through the diamond club and so on. It's only those 4 locations that we're even allowed to do this. We're not allowed to do it indoors, so basketball doesn't get involved in any of this.
Do you think it will work smoothly? You don't think they'll be like, oh yeah, I checked with them, we're selling banners, and they put them up? I don't know. I worry.
Well, I think we have to give them some guidance in terms of number and size. And I think Mark's duration is a good one just for the season. But, if they're not using the space and they don't mind these other organizations putting up the banners, then, I don't see the harm, and it promotes more, like we pointed out that this particular organization does give back to the high school program. So it does seem to be able to say no would be.
I have to jump off for a couple of minutes. I just have to take this call.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thanks, Steve.
Who puts them up physically, Mark? Like just like, yeah, go ahead and they put them up, or do our guys go out there and put them up? Who puts them up?
Well, usually in the beginning, whichever organization sells the banners puts them up. And then what has kind of happened and evolved is our facilities crew then takes them down at the end of the season and houses them and then puts them back up. At least that's been on the lower turf. The stadium field, Gridiron has done all on their own. They put them up at the beginning of they take them down at the end of the season, they house them, store them, and if the same people buy again the next year, they put them back up.
Because I feel like we can edit the policy, but there's going to have to be some document that says, advertising and promotions on fields, and it's all written out. These are the rules the outside group has to follow. Check here, like step 5 steps. Here it is. Go to it. Is it that simple?
I think so too. I think
agree.
You're gonna want Mark or yourself, Lisa, probably Mark, or whoever would be best situated to have some kind of oversight. Otherwise, it could get a little ragtag.
It definitely
Um,
has to. I agree with that. One question that I have though is we're mentioning that this youth organization gives to the high school program. How do they do that? Do they do that through donations? How is it that they are actually? Because here's what I'm thinking: is this organization might do that, and that's great that we give them credit for the fact that they do that, and we appreciate it. But what happens when we have other organizations that come in that don't necessarily give back to the high school? And now we're giving them basically this advertising space. Do we ask, yes, you can sell this advertising space, but 10% of it goes to the boosters or something along those lines? Kind of I hate to say a revenue share, especially when it's for an organization that's trying to raise money for the kids. But, if it's an organization that gives back to us, you understand what I'm saying? I think we need to kind of figure that kind of soft piece out as well.
Is
So
there
why don't we do this? Why don't we edit this? Mark can edit the specific fields and the numbers and all that what we think of. And we can also put in there that the bottom line is all the advertising has to go through the superintendent's office. So if there's some situation where that's always the out, that we don't want them to do it. But I think if we can edit this, come back next month with an edited version. And meanwhile, Mark, if you can just, give us those specs that you think would be good for each field, then we can come back. And then maybe we look at this particular group as a pilot, if you will, so it doesn't get bogged down then it goes for a first read, then it goes for a second read.
Oh, I agree. Let's
Yeah.
let them, they'll miss a whole season if we're waiting for this to be enacted. They've done everything right by reaching out to Mark and reaching out to me, and they're very respectful and nice. So let's give them the opportunity. I just don't want to cut the boosters out. I don't know who's in charge of that organization. Maybe
I
Mark,
will-
you.
Yeah, I can double check with boosters. I am relatively certain they are not selling banners on the lower turf for this season. So I think we're safe to move forward and, let this group know that this is for this season, for right now, for this season only, as we continue to dissect how to best handle this moving forward, because it is going to open up it's going to open this up for other youth organizations who maybe haven't thought of this before.
Exactly.
And so we need to be careful about that. I will say that my experience with the youth soccer club, with the youth lacrosse club, with Babe Ruth is they're always willing to work with us, not against us. And we do work well together. So I don't foresee this becoming a Wild West where everyone's just throwing banners up all over the place. I think as long as we say it all has to come through the high school, and if Diamond Club's doing it, then, unfortunately Babe Ruth can't, but maybe Diamond Club does their spring season. It comes down at the end of the spring, and Babe Ruth, if they wanted to do it over the summer, could then do it over the summer because that's really when their season is anyway. So there's ways to work it out so that everyone gets their little piece without making us look like a used car sales lot.
When is our next meeting, Jody, in this group?
It's usually the
The
beginning of
next
the month.
meeting is March 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, March
So
7th.
before March 7th, if Mark, you can work with Jody to edit it so it says what you think it should say, the policy. And that the specific, basically about the field, the three of us can work together to edit it. Then we can share you another version, okay? And we'll bring it back with a cleaner version. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think so too. And Lisa, if you want to loop me in a week or two early, whenever you have it, I can.
But the goal is to get this done by the end of February.
Yeah, I can have some of the language. I can work on some of the language we've talked about in this
Okay, that's
discussion.
perfect. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Good.
I think this will be great. It's good that people want to do this and support the sports and the athletics.
Yeah, and in the end, they're all fighting for the same advertisers, which is why I don't see this getting too out of hand. There's only so many places to go, so I don't think we're going to end up with. Yeah, and we have a limit anyway. It already says 20 is the maximum. I don't think we're going to end up with even 20 on every field. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. No, good point. Okay, well, I think that was really, really helpful. So thanks, Mark, for attending and giving us your insight. And I think we have a good path forward for this. Do you want to reach out to the lacrosse people, or do you want me to? temporary, I'm sure they're going to want to start on this process. Maybe put them in touch with the boosters.
My understanding is that they already spoke to boosters. I'm not positive about
Okay.
that, but when I originally got the email from them, I gave them the boosters president information so that they could reach directly out to boosters to make sure the boosters was okay with it. But I also told them it would have to go through Board of Ed because I don't have the right to give permission to
All
an
right.
outside group. So
I'll reach out to them and tell them that they're kind of a test case this year and to work with boosters and with you.
Yeah, make sure that it's the right size and all that.
Yep.
I don't want them going wild, but I don't
Okay.
think. Okay.
I'll reach out to them. Okay.
Okay. Can we do Dan DeVito next?
Yes, please. Let's. I think we can probably let Mark go then.
Yep. Bye, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
thank you.
Dan DeVito, are you there? Okay, well, let's go to Tina Henkel then. Field trips and community service. Let's do that one next. So then Tina can go back to her, what she needs to have done.
Great. Okay, so we have policy number 6153 that hasn't been updated since 2004. We have compared the Shipman and Goodwin right policy for field trips and combined some of the language that had already been in existence that we still wanted to maintain with all the language that was within the field trips and community service policies of Shipman and Goodwin.
Okay.
We have deleted a considerable amount because we added in the language around the requirement of all field trips requiring written approval and following the administrative regulations in order to implement the policy. So we do have 2 internal administrative regulations that we have already put into place for individual field trips and then overnight field trips with the staff and the building principals and all of the departments for approval, as well as requiring any overnight field trips to be presented at the curriculum committee for pre-approval and then final approval at the full board. So all of those details are part of the administrative regulations, which is stated as a line in the actual policy.
So do we have to, for the sake of the policy, put the administrative regulations in here?
Yes. The administrative regulations are how you implement. The policy is kind of like the law, and the regulations are how you go about meeting the requirements of the law.
Okay. So okay. So I did not
So
include.
did you delete it? Let me look. There is a reg, right? No.
There was no statement of administrative regulations in the previous policy. We added that language in.
Okay.
I don't know if I didn't see anything that clearly identified that there was a field trip administrative regulation attached to that policy.
Okay.
So, but it says here, regulation revised. So that means we have to put it here. On the red line version, it says regulation was revised January 31st, 2023. So we need to make sure that the regulation is attached.
Yeah, because it says the regulation was last revised 2004, but where is it? I'm not seeing it in here. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not attached, so we just have to attach it.
Okay.
Okay.
And help me understand, can I show you the administrative regulation / policy that we have started already internally for a moment? And maybe you could tell me if I'm not interpreting what an administrative regulation really is versus maybe a process, or are they one and the same?
Kind of put in the same, but the process might have extra things.
Okay.
Yeah, think of it as more detail and instruction as to how to accomplish what's set out.
The things that you wrote then can easily become the regulations, Tina, and we can.
Okay.
You want to show it to us, or
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now. I just want to make sure that I'm pulling up the right document. So here I go. I'm going to share.
I think it's great how on the new policy, just the policy part, it defines the 3 types of field trips. It talks about emergency. It talks about safety. A lot of that stuff is good that we put in there.
So can you see the screen?
It's really small.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry.
No.
I left my glasses downstairs.
How's that?
Better. Thank you.
Okay.
So like one of the regulations might be, for example, there's a lot of different steps about how to get things approved. But it might be that the chaperone, that you must fill out the field trip request form and be approved. Like that's an example of a regulation, right, Melissa?
Yes, exactly.
So
Like the request form, all the things you have in here that I'm seeing. Yeah.
keep going. Keep going. Like the 7, all overnight field trip documentation must be presented to the Board of Ed, okay? And overnight field trip final approval, that would be one. Like 10, no, I mean, people do that anyway. But
Yeah, and then it goes into the all the documentation, which includes.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
This is too much detail for the policy itself.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So it's really the steps that becomes the administrative regulation, and then these are the administrative guidelines.
Correct,
Yes.
Okay.
perfect. So why don't we'll bring it back in March
Yes.
with the regulations.
Just a couple things on the actual policy that we in our board book. Just two typos I noticed I wanted to correct before.
Please. Mm-hmm.
Yep. The last paragraph of the policy. So let me go where that is. There's a TH.
Yep.
You got
I
that?
changed it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then in the private automobile section,
Okay.
there's a sued that needs to be used.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, we
Yep.
changed, I think it keeps going back.
When
'Cause-
private vehicles need to be used. Oh, yeah, it says used here. I don't know what happened.
Well, it said sued. I can't find it now.
Yeah,
I'm
I
on the
know
wrong
where it is.
page.
It
It's
says-
updated here, so I'll make sure then I resubmit this with the administrative regs attached to this document, correct?
Mine says used.
No, then we're not in the same place because mine definitely said sued.
All right, well, we know where it is. We can. correct
Okay,
it. Here's
yeah.
my question, Melissa. What do you think about the thing about chartered buses and private automobiles? Should that be part of the regs instead?
No, I think that's fine because that's a bright line rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I
find
think
what? Keep it in the
anything-
policy or keep it in the regs?
I would put it in the policy.
Okay.
Anything that is a clear that can be followed very easily and doesn't require clarification, I think it's fine. If there's but we're going to allow it in these certain circumstances, or there's discretion at the superintendent level or something like that, then I would say let's put it in the regs.
Can I ask a
But,
question on this policy? Is this, this is just being revised just to update it, correct? Or are there any,
Yes.
there's nothing that's come about that's made for any major concern with this policy or any major changes to the policy? It's just basically the structure of it, how we're putting it together, correct?
Well, we've added some language that Shipman and Goodwin had. We did not
Right.
have administrative regs in here, but because we have more details around the process for approval now, which as we said, also evolve or connect to administrative regs. That's why we updated
Okay.
that, so we can clean this up because it was like 4 pages before
Right.
and very much outdated. Yes.
Okay, all right. Just
Yes.
making sure there was not an issue with it aside
Yeah,
from
no,
that.
well, Dr. Henkel, upon her arrival, realized that the process was not as smooth and detailed and followed as well as it should be. So to her credit, she took the bull by the horns and cleaned everything up, which I
Great.
think is good. That while there wasn't a big glaring concern, it definitely needed some more structure and guardrails put on it.
Fabulous.
Especially, I would say, for the people wanting to go on the trips.
Well, especially the overnight ones, right?
Yeah.
They weren't really being presented to the board at the subcommittee or being finally approved. So that's now in writing.
Oh, yeah, we're doing it. What do you mean you're doing it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that which trips come to the board level? Just the overnight?
Overnight. Just
And
the
that's
over-
just for the curriculum subcommittee.
Well,
Oh.
no, they go to pre-approval for the subcommittee as an awareness and questions, and then for clarity, and then they go to the full board
Okay,
for final approval.
all right. I guess I didn't see that. I saw the subcommittee. I didn't see the other. All right.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Okay.
Well
I think this
done,
makes a lot of
Dr.
sense.
Henkel. All right, good. So we'll bring both of those back, and that means Dr. Henkel can join us again. All right, at the
Great.
next meeting.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Is it okay
thank
if I bow out on this one? I'm sorry, Deanne. I don't mean to
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
jump back. I know. I'll connect.
Thanks,
you
thanks for the support, Tina.
All right, I'll stay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
oh, Dan is back. Now we can do his policy. You missed your window. You could have been out sooner. Okay,
Thanks, Tina.
privately technological devices by students. Now,
Yeah.
this policy, if you will, I'm trying to look at the last time it was
2020.
Oh,
with me.
The last time it was updated was 2020.
Yeah,
When-
I remember looking at this, so it was definitely updated while
It's very
I was
recent.
on the board.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just think that there needs to be a little bit more clarification. Take it
Sure.
away, Dan.
Yeah, the biggest piece is really, the paragraph that defines what a privately owned technological device is. We're getting more feedback here and in surrounding towns, specifically regarding smartwatches, like Apple Watches, and the use of those in classrooms.
mm-hmm.
I just wanted to bring up, Shipman and Goodwin did update the policy in 2022 that includes a couple more pieces, but the one I really wanted to include in there is to just explicitly define privately owned technological devices to include the blurb for meaning smartwatches and other wearable technology, because
Yeah.
as time goes on, we're going to see more and more wearable tech. And it's different when a teacher can tell the student, keep your cell phone in your locker, put your cell phone in your pocket. Kids are always wearing their watch, right? And these watches can be used for nefarious purposes during class.
Let's be correct. They are used for nefarious purposes in class. There are so many formulas that are texted to themselves that they can access on their watch in the middle of a test.
Right.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen this happen here, but I've heard of experiences of students texting to each other through their watches while one student's outside of a classroom. So I just want to bring that up because there were in other towns there were parents.
I wish Tina had heard this. Is Tina aware that this is happening?
She
Okay, maybe
knows.
I'm naive.
Well, and we have,
But they're not doing this stuff too much until like end of middle school, beginning of high
No.
school. That's when they're really start.
Yeah.
No,
Didn't we-
no, you don't
do
think
we
so?
have an issue in the intermediate school with this, Dan?
Oh my!
I
I'm
wasn't
wrong.
aware of it being the intermediate school, but we're seeing it happen more and more. I mean, kids are wearing watches starting in like second grade.
I know that at the intermediate school, there was, it was becoming a classroom management concern
Yeah.
with some students. I saw it just today. It was in the 7th grade class. The girl had it on. She wasn't doing anything with it, but she had it on. And because I started looking, who has them on? So I do think it's worth just adding those couple.
Yeah,
changes.
definitely.
Parents are more likely to now purchase their child a smartwatch before a cell phone at this point in time. So that's why we're starting to see it happen more and more.
Yeah. I've heard that anecdotally. Like I'm not getting my kid a phone, but they bought the smartwatch. Yeah.
Right, because they can GPS them, right? That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing is you can track them.
All right. Good to know.
So
Yeah.
that's why I kind of wanted I wanted us to get ahead of the curve.
Okay.
I've heard anecdotally across the country, parents questioning, well, you're telling my child to take their watch off during class. That's how I communicate with them and whatever. So I want us to be ahead of the game.
Are we doing that in the high school and the middle school, telling kids that they need to take their watches off during exams?
Not that I've heard of, but I think that this at least gives the option and awareness of it.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should let Megan and Dan know that they have the authority and let their teachers know that they have the authority to do that. I mean,
All of these policies are reviewed at the principal's level now, and so we have a
Okay.
meeting and we will review them.
Yeah.
Before- I don't want them to first hear about it at the Board of Ed meeting.
yeah.
That's good.
We'll make sure that,
And I know, and I've spoken to some staff members, some teachers who they do explicitly tell the students, take your watch off your pocket, but not everyone's aware of the harm. I don't want to say the harm, but the power that smartwatches can have and other wearable technology can have.
Right. Well, it's not fair to the other students. So Yeah.
Right. Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, there's other verbiage in there, just You see in the red on the attachment, unless necessary for students to access the district digital learning platform for remote learning. So they went a little bit more with explaining when they can use it if remote learning is applicable by law. So I figured we might as well also include that in there.
Okay, so the red language is something that is coming from Shipman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's their
Okay,
updated.
so you thought of this and then checked with them to see if they had something they did.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, good. Nice, Dan. Good work.
looks
Okay,
good.
thank you, Dan. So
I
we'll
have
go for the
I-
first reading. I'm sorry. We'll go for the first reading then at the board meeting.
I think it's ready. Does anyone have any questions?
I think it's ready, but I have another question to ask Dan, and I don't think this is necessarily the document to put it in, but something that we need to take a look at, and that's the AI issue right now with
Yeah.
education. And how do we address that?
So AI, and so this is another conversation I wish Tina was a part of, because we've talked a lot about this. ChatGPT, and now Google just has their new one. They're actually starting to integrate it into search engines now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's now going to be part of the fabric of online presence. So, there's two schools of thought as to blocking it or teaching how to use it properly. And I do think that that's a larger conversation, Sharon, that we definitely need to talk to, because this is just the beginning, and AI will change education as a whole if it continues down the path. When you have Microsoft literally injecting billions of dollars into these programs. So that is a conversation.
I just saw something last night about, it's impossible, next to impossible. There are some programs that are being developed trying to detect when AI is being utilized as opposed to a student's own writing, et cetera. And the AI just keeps getting smarter, so it continues to elude it. So I guess, I don't know, we have to, it'd be prudent for us to have a discussion about this and how we as a board think that approaching this would be the best approach.
I'm glad you raised it, Sharon. We were talking about it in our household too, and I was learning about it. It's shocking what it can do. It can tell jokes. It can write your 5-paragraph theme for you. I mean, it can do a lot. What would be the right, Lisa, where do you think would be the right venue to start this conversation? Okay.
Curriculum?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk to you.
And I will also say that they have been discussing it at the school level.
Oh, yeah.
And just saying, here are the things. So we're not blocking it right now. And we don't, as of right now, we do not have any plan to block it. But there's been a lot of conversation with staff members on know your students, know their writing. And there are things which I do not want to say in a public venue that staff can check on to make sure that it's that student's writing.
Yeah.
So I just,
Well,
I don't want to say it out loud, but
please.
There are ways that staff members can quickly check involving Google Docs to make sure, hey, this is that child's writing. And this also stresses the importance of teachers knowing their students and knowing their writing style and how they write. And so I think that's, an important thing to stress as well.
And the other option always is, what we did in law school was you had the little blue books and pencils, and that's how. And I graduated in 2002. We had computers; they just didn't let them in the rooms.
Yep.
So you wrote it all down.
So we'll get Tina to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I think it would be something to think about.
I think it's key for curriculum, absolutely, but I think eventually it's going to end up in our committee because we're going to have some sort of a policy as to what we do to handle it as a system. So, all right.
I agree with that. All
Okay.
right, well, this is good though, Dan. Thanks for spotting this issue and taking this forward. I think this is a really good value add to this policy. So let's bring that forward.
Jody, can you put that on the agenda for February? Okay.
And Jody, I forgot in reading. And Jody, I forgot in reading through it, looking for, the inclusive language. I will, if I can, give it a read through. I should be able to do that. If you would put your eyes on it too, just to make sure.
Yeah, every policy she's been checking, like the ones that we're reviewing for other reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They slip through. It's good to have two sets of eyes. I'll take a look.
Yeah, please do. We don't need any they mistake. Okay. Fundraising. Last one, right? Dan, you don't have to stay for this.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
See you
thanks,
later.
Dan.
I forget why this came up.
This came up just in the context with the fields and Mark. I pulled this because I thought I wasn't sure what we wanted to convey to the outside groups and if we had concerns over not just what the banners look like and where they go, but how they raise the money. If there was any concerns we had to take a look at the policy. I didn't particularly have any specifically. I just thought,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
So in terms, I'm sorry I had to drop off when it was late. It's
Yeah.
an odd morning. Who approves whatever the wording is on whatever the banners are?
It would be either Lisa or her
With the
designee,
banner.
which would be Mark.
And how about on the televised aspect of our
Same thing.
athletic event? Same thing.
Same
So
thing.
you see whatever's going to be on.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the
Like,
televised portion of it, just so
advertised.
you know, Steve, it's just basically a logo in the corner.
Yeah, I
There's
know.
no like live ad or anything.
Yeah, but
No, I
when you look
understand.
at the banners, and there's nothing like, you can't advertise liquor. You can't put rude things up there. You got to make it look good, you know.
Okay.
And the other thing you missed, Steve, I think, was when the other policy where they added watches and wearable technology for the student-owned technology. So just because of the use of watches and how kids can use them nefariously, as he said, in the
Oh,
class.
yeah. Right, yeah.
So anyway, all right, you're up to date.
I'm glad we did look at this fundraising policy because I hadn't looked at it through the eyes of the superintendent, so it makes me aware of it. And I think it pertains to things like, you know, oh, we want to raise money for this trip, or we want to do, like, it's not just about people. The advertising is the advertising, but it's student fundraising, things like that. And just one of the things that we did want to change in it when we reviewed it, I reviewed it with Dr. Henkel, was, you know,
The
things,
timing.
the length, if you go to
Yeah.
page 3, like, you know, you're talking about, because I had to read this a couple times to make sure I understand it. If a group wants to raise money and they're going to be raising more than $5,000, for example, we have to know about that at least 2 months prior to it happening. We can't just have it. Sometimes, you know, unfortunately, oftentimes in a small district, we find that, well, we do it and then we ask for forgiveness and we kind of have to get it more in place. And so when you look at that, when you look at also the whole idea of the form, the fundraising form, I think that's good to have people fill it out. We've got to, it's my responsibility to make sure that the principals and in turn, they make sure all the club advisors and everybody follow this, because I don't think it has been followed as well
Yeah.
as it necessarily should be. So that's why tomorrow at our principals meeting, we're going to be reviewing this also to go over that. There has to be some accountability of, you know, the money, how much money is taken in, where it's all of those things. So the big change here is really the language. Jody took out the his and the hers. So if you want to look at it again, Melissa, but also the timeline. You know, if you're raising that kind of money, we have to know about it 2 months prior to the activity. That's significant.
Yeah. I mean, I that's your discretion. I think how much time you feel like you need is what's appropriate. And if 4 weeks is not enough, then let's make it 2 months. I don't have any problem with that.
So
I
hold on.
think-
So we have 2 paragraphs in here. One is for 1 month, one is for 2 months, and it doesn't specify the threshold amount set.
Yes.
So is that for a lower amount 1 month and a larger amount 2 months, or how
Yeah.
is it? Okay. And the threshold amounts are what?
I have to reread it.
Where
And
are
so-
you, Sharon?
I'm in prior approval
Request-
required.
It requests for prior approval for fundraising anticipated to raise funds. I thought it said here, and now it's not here, up to $5,000.
Yeah,
But-
mine just has simply threshold amount set by district, and
I don't-
both
I
of
don't
that
know
paragraph
where-
and the next one.
Because the language,
Well,
But
you may want to change that first paragraph to 2 months as well instead of 2 weeks, right?
It's not 2 weeks. It says at least 1 month. So the first paragraph says 1 month, and the second paragraph
You
says
have a
2
different
months.
set than me.
we have something different. We have
You must have
that
something
says-
different, Sharon. Mine says 2 weeks prior to the commencement of the
2 weeks
activity.
prior, but Jody, wasn't there an amount in there? I thought there was an
No,
amount.
The
there
second
wasn't one in the
paragraph.
first paragraph. It was the second paragraph that we mirrored Shipman where it said 5,000 and then we changed it to 2 months.
But I think that the first one
It
has.
should say less, it should say up to 5,000.
That's
I
what
agree with you,
thought it
Jody.
said. It has to say
Up
up to
to
$5,000,
Yeah.
Okay, making that change.
okay?
And then you want to leave that, if it's less than 5,000,
I
you're
think
fine
2
with the
weeks
2
is
weeks.
fine.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, because, you're talking about, we're going to raise the money at a bake sale for
Yeah.
cancer awareness. It's when they get into like, we're doing a poinsettia driver, they need to be more planful about it.
Agreed.
You know? And is there still a little bit of wiggle room? Of course, we always take that into consideration. I just don't want to hear about something going on,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
we've
yeah.
already advertised it and it hasn't even come to us, and they're talking about significant amount of money.
Yep.
So
I think
for
that's right.
something like the middle school event a couple of weeks ago, I mean, they really don't know how much they're going to raise. I mean,
No, that's PTO. They do that on their own.
okay,
This
thank
is
you.
this is like kids doing stuff here.
Okay,
Like the band, or it has nothing to do, please, or just like the sweetheart dance. I'm not getting into that on Friday.
Okay, I see where it's different, where what I was looking at was further down. It was not part of, it was part of the
Are
next,
you in the, are
the
you in the
fundraising
regular?
activities. Series 5,000 students, fundraising activities.
Are you in the regulations? What are you in?
Are you looking at
Administrative regulations, that's where I was. So the administrative regulations need to match up with the other part.
Yeah, we'll
That's
have
my
to-
feedback.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sharon.
So I still don't understand where you are.
I'm further down in the document. So you guys are on page 3 of that document. I'm further down in the next document where it's the,
On board book, I think it's page 11 or 12, maybe.
I'm unfortunately having to read it on my
14.
phone because I can't access it on my
Okay,
screen right
14.
now. So,
There's a bracket that says threshold amount set by district.
yes.
So I think we just want to fill that out in the reg.
Yeah,
Correct.
we had. I thought we
That's the
had
Shipman piece.
same thing.
I think you're looking at the Shipman document.
Yes.
So we're
Isn't that
not
the
utilizing then? I mean, because
No.
it's got red lines through it. So I thought
But
that we
those are the
were.
regulations. We have to use them.
Yeah.
This is
So
the
will you-
policy. Then we have these forms.
No.
We need to have the regulation. This is kind
The
of.
regulation's there. I think we can use it. We just want to make sure that
Yes,
it says the
That
2
it
weeks,
matches.
because it's saying 1 month instead of 2 weeks above, and the $5,000 isn't there.
Correct.
So we just want to make sure that that matches. That's page 14 into 15. And I think we want to clean this up because for this regulation, like there's a lot in brackets here, right? It's saying you can use this or use this, right, on page.
yeah, I thought we had. You're right. The regulations have to
16.
be all cleaned up. Do you want
So
us
we
to
just-
bring this back to you again in March?
It's up to you. I mean, if you want to send it, if you want it to come up in March, I think we can get it done. If you'd rather us have another set of eyes and look at it, we can look at it here in March.
Let's do that. Well, I don't know. We have so many policies. I apologize that it's not ready.
No, that's okay. Well,
No, I'm glad we caught it. Then
Yeah.
it'd be a
All right,
pain to
bring
have
it,
to send it
bring it
back.
to March. And then the
Yeah.
other policy we have to do in March is the suicide policy.
Yeah.
It hasn't been done in like 20 years.
Well, if for our March meeting, hopefully especially if you can give me the advertising policy ahead of time, I can look at that ahead of time. That way, when it comes to us in March, that should be a quick review. This you can
This
send
would be-
to me in advance too, if you can. No, I don't. Only if that's helpful. I can review it in advance, and that way it would be quick through the committee, and then we can spend our
Okay.
discussion time on suicide,
All right,
the
perfect.
suicide policy.
So the advertising has to be corrected. Jody and Mark will work on that. The fundraising, Jody has to make the regulations match the policy. The field trips, Tina and I will do the regulation piece. We'll bring all 3 of them forward. That'll be quick. And then we'll bring the suicide for a first read.
suicide
read
for first
here.
read, suicide for discussion. First read would
And
be
policy.
in April.
Well, or discussion, whether. First,
Yeah.
And then the technology policy will go to the board
First
at the
read.
next meeting
Yeah.
for its first read. That one's ready. We can move that off.
Yep.
Yeah, and send me what you know, if you want me to look at things, send them to me when they're done, and that'll take some of the time-consuming nature of it off, and I'll take a look ahead of time. If that helps.
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I think that's everything on the agenda.
I think
Correct?
so too. Can we adjourn, but then can Melissa and Steve and I talk for a couple minutes
Sure.
about the
All right.
agenda for the board meeting?
Okay, absolutely. Let me adjourn this meeting. Sharon, can I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll end the policy meeting as of 10:05.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, let's end the recording.